Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson. This lesson is on the signs and symptoms of a migraine headache. So when we think about a migraine headache, we often think that it is simply just a headache, but there are several phases of a migraine headache with a variety of different symptoms in each phase. So there's actually 4 phases of a migraine headache, and not all individuals will go through each phase, but some individuals might. So phase 1 is what we call the prodrome. Phase 2 is an aura. Phase 3 is the actual migraine headache itself. And then phase 4 is the postdrome. So we're going to talk about the signs and symptoms in each phase in the upcoming slides. So let's first talk about what happens in phase 1, the prodrome. Approximately 3/4 of patients who experience migraine headaches will experience a prodrome. So some of the signs and symptoms in the prodrome phase include yawning. And those who do experience a prodrome, about 1/3 of patients will experience yawning. What we can see is that there can be repetitive yawning. And the yawning seems to be due to dopaminergic activity within the hypothalamus. So there is abnormal dopamine activity within the hypothalamus leading to this symptom of yawning. Another symptom during the prodrome is lethargy. So lethargy is simply feeling tired or lacking energy. In the prodrome, we can also see photophobia. Photophobia is a sensitivity to light. Photo means light, phobia means fear, but in this context, it is sensitivity. Migraine is actually the most common associated condition. So if an individual does experience photophobia or sensitivity to light, it is highly likely that they could be experiencing a migraine. They could be having a prodrome of a migraine, or they could be in another phase of the migraine. This appears to be due to some visual pathway dysfunction, although the etiology is not entirely known. And then there can also be phonophobia during the prodrome of a migraine headache. So phonophobia means sensitivity to sound. The prefix phono meaning sound. And the underlying pathophysiology of why phonophobia occurs is unknown. So continuing in phase 1 or the prodrome, this includes food cravings. This again may be related to abnormal dopaminergic activity in the hypothalamus. Individuals can also experience excessive thirst, and the mechanism here is likely related to or similar to the mechanism of why they have food cravings as well. There can also be issues with cold sensitivity. This may be due to changes in temperature perception. So they may experience feeling colder than normal. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, they can have issues with sweating. And this also may be due to changes in temperature perception. So the changes in temperature perception can be experienced as issues with cold sensitivity or issues with sweating. So they can feel very hot and they can have issues where they're sweating too much. More signs and symptoms of the prodrome include mood changes. So they can go from being happy, sad, angry, rapid changes in mood. And then they can also have issues with changes in energy levels. So we talked about lethargy, so they can feel very tired, but they can also feel very energetic and restless as well. Now moving on to phase 2, the aura. So individuals who have migraine headaches can have an aura, and we're going to talk about what an aura is here in a moment. About 1/4 of patients who suffer from migraine headaches experience an aura. So the aura of a migraine headache has several different subcategories we're going to talk about here, and it's all changes in perception. So individuals who have an aura, who do experience an aura, can have visual abnormalities or visual changes. These include a scintillating scotoma. This is a word that is used to describe a distortion in their vision that changes or fluctuates. They can also see shapes and lines in their vision. So they can see squares and circles and triangle, different types of shapes that block their vision. They can have visual field defects, so parts of their vision can be completely blocked or darkened. And then they may have a reduction or loss of vision entirely. So visual changes are the most common perceptual change in an aura. But we can also see auditory and other sensory changes as well. These include tinnitus or tinnitus, where an individual has ringing in their ears, so they can hear a buzzing sound or ringing. They can have a reduction or loss of hearing entirely, and this is oftentimes temporary during the aura. And they can also have certain sensory abnormalities like paresthesia, so numbness and tingling sensations in their extremities. And they can even have issues with transient dysphonia. So an individual going through an aura may have issues with articulating certain words. They may have issues with speech. And the signs and symptoms of an aura can last for as long as the aura lasts, and an aura can last upwards of 60 minutes. Now moving on to phase 3, the actual headache in a migraine. So the migraine headache has particular features that make it easy to identify. One is that it's most often unilateral. So instead of a tension type headache where it can be a band across the head and oftentimes occurs bilaterally, a migraine headache is unilateral, which means it occurs on one side. It has a characteristic of pulsatile or throbbing. So it can be pulsating and a throbbing type of headache. So it can feel like your head is pounding. Oftentimes the intensity of the pain can be quite severe. It can be anywhere from moderate to severe in intensity. A migraine headache oftentimes lasts for 4 to 72 hours. It's worsened with physical activity, so any movement of the head or walking around, doing any types of activity can worsen the headache. And it's improved with rest. Oftentimes it can be improved with being in a dark environment and being at rest. So again, migraine headache, it's oftentimes unilateral, pulsatile, moderate to severe in intensity, lasts for 4 to 72 hours, worsened with physical activity, and improved with rest. Some other associated symptoms during phase 3, during the actual migraine headache itself, include photophobia, again, that sensitivity to light, phonophobia, that sensitivity to sound. We can also see issues with nausea and vomiting during this phase as well. So an individual that has a severe migraine can have some nausea and vomiting. They can also have rhinorrhea, so a runny nose. They can also have issues with lacrimation, so tears running from their eyes. And they can also have allodynia. So allodynia is a sensation of even very mild touch of a particular part of your body being painful. So that is allodynia. So these are the associated symptoms with the headache during phase 3. And then there's also phase 4, the post-drome. So after that 4 to 72 hour period of phase 3, an individual can experience a post-drome, or also known as a migraine hangover. So the post-drome itself can last for anywhere from a few hours to upwards of a day. And some of the signs and symptoms of the post-drome include exhaustion. So individuals who have gotten over their migraine headache feel incredibly exhausted. They can have issues with irritability. They can have issues with poor concentration as well, so difficulty focusing on tasks and completing tasks. And they can also have issues with some dizziness as well. So again, what we take from this lesson is that a migraine headache is not simply a headache. It can have multiple phases, including a prodrome, aura, the migraine headache itself, and a postdrome. And each phase has particular signs and symptoms that occur. So if you want to learn more about migraine headaches, please check out my lesson on overview of migraine headaches. And if you haven't already, please consider liking, subscribing, and clicking the notification bell to help support the channel and stay up to date on future lessons. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.